Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sam and this video is going to be me talking about 10 of my favourite releases that came out in 2022. We were spoiled for physical media releases of films this year and it was very hard to pinpoint 10 releases, but I've managed to scale it down to 10 things that I think were the best of the year. And I should caveat this video by saying there is a bunch of things missing from this list that I didn't manage to pick up. So things like the ShawScope Volume 2 set I would imagine would be included on this list, but I haven't bought it yet. So just there will be some missing things that are quite highly regarded as some of the best releases of the year. But I think I've got a good variety of films and representation of different labels here. So yeah, these are my top 10 of the year. So starting off with what I think is one of the best films of the 21st century, and BFI put out a fantastic 4K restoration sort of deluxe box set of this film, and it's John Hillcoat's The Proposition from 2005. This is an amazing neo-western set in Australia and tells the story of a criminal played by Guy Pearce who has been proposed to track down his criminal brother, who is sort of on the run and in hiding, in order to save the life of his other criminal brother, who is being held in jail and is to be hung if his other brother isn't brought to justice. And this is very much a film about outsiders in a foreign land, and the story is written by Nick Cave, and he also does the music for the film, and it just has some of the most complex characters that I've seen in a fairly modern film ever, and I absolutely love it. And the restoration work that BFI did, as well as like all these supplementary materials, like audio commentaries with Nick Cave and the director John Hillcoat, and there's an audio commentary by Alexandra Helen Nicholas and Josh Nelson, and many other things, including like an 80-page booklet of essays and writings and stuff on the film. And yeah, truly one of the best releases of the year and of recent years, to be honest. It's absolutely amazing. Another one from the BFI is Ghost Stories for Christmas, Volume 1. So hopefully this time next year we'll have Volume 2 come out. And this is a collection of short films that were aired around Christmas time on the BBC. Ghost stories, as the title suggests. And this includes Whistle and I'll Come to You, The Stalls of Barchester, A Warning to the Curious, and Lost Hearts. I do think that Whistle and I'll Come to You is the best of the bunch, but all of them are really interesting. But Whistle and I'll Come to You is the one that actually got under my skin and creeped me out slightly. Very interesting short ghost story. And this just comes with a plethora of bonus features about the films and audio commentaries and like audio readings of the short stories that the films are based on by M.R. James and things like that. And yeah, this was such a welcome release this year. And yeah, I look forward to Volume 2 if it does come out in the future. And yeah, this was great from BFI. Two awesome releases so far from them. Next up, Lux Eterna by Gaspar Noe, released by Arrow Video. This film is experimental, and it details it's like a pseudo documentary, and it is about Charlotte Gainsbourg and Beatrice Dahl playing themselves during a very chaotic film production, and the production is just going haywire. Lots of screaming and shouting and people being made to wait long periods of time, and very much details like the mistreatment of women in the film industry, and comparing it to sort of like the witch trials in the past, like the Salem witch trials and things like that. And it's a fascinating film. Very short, it's only like 50 minutes long, so some people may be like, oh, why would I want to buy a physical media release of something so short? It's the package in general. Like, the film is incredible, I absolutely loved it, but it's all the supplementary materials you get here. There's a fantastic commentary from Kat Ellinger, and there's a visual essay on witchcraft by Miranda Corcoran, which is really interesting. And yeah, comes with a booklet with some essay writings as well, and I love the artwork on this. It's absolutely fantastic. and it's experimental in its use of split screen. Like the whole film is told with two separate images side by side, sort of detailing different sides of what's going on in the narrative at the time, and I absolutely loved it. Gaspar Noe is a very, very interesting director, very divisive. He's a provocateur. This is one of his more accessible films, I think, although some of the techniques he uses in it can maybe turn some people off, but definitely the content of the film shouldn't offend people too much, as some of his other films can do. But yeah, I love this release from Arrow Video, and yeah, one of my favourites of the year. From one Gaspar to another, Utopia's release of Vortex. So Utopia are a partner label of Vinegar Syndrome, so of their OCN distribution. So OCN sort of bring together a bunch of independent Blu-ray labels and distribute them for them so that they can be more widely accessible for people. And yeah, Utopia put out this amazing release of Vortex, a very personal film for Gaspar Noe, and it tells the story of a woman that is sort of suffering from dementia, and her husband, who is also in poor health, is sort of trying to look after her at the same time. It's a very heartbreaking story, and again, following on from Lux Eterna, it is told through split screen, so it can be it's an experimental sort of a film technique where two images side by side are telling the story here. And I absolutely love this packaging. So the packaging comes out the side like so, and then we have different artwork on the inside. And yeah, there's a couple of really good Q&As with Gaspar Noe, one at the New York Film Festival and one at the IFC Centre. And there's also, again, there's an essay by Alexandra Helen Nicholas, who is one of my favourite sort of film critics and people who do commentaries and essays and things in physical media releases. And this film is definitely one to watch if you're intrigued about Gaspar Noe's work but don't want to delve into his more controversial stuff to start with. And this is definitely his more emotionally affecting pieces of work, and it's absolutely amazing. Another release from the partner labels from Vinegar Syndrome is Factory 25's amazing release of a little documentary called Other Music. Now, this is a film about the sort of last weeks of this very famous record store in New York City that unfortunately no longer exists. And it details the history of like where it began and how it grew like to immense popularity, with like loads of bands playing in the store space over the years, and just is like a tribute to physical media, although it's through music and like vinyl records and CDs and stuff like that. There's a lot of transferable sort of ethos about, you know, collecting art for good or bad. And yeah, I found this absolutely fascinating, and it's just, yeah, really sad that something like this doesn't exist anymore, and that a lot of people's sort of niche interests in terms of like talking to other people about it is across the internet, like this video I'm making. Hopefully we can start a dialogue in the comments, but there's nowhere, the places to go to talk about art and your interests and passions for things like music and film and stuff is mostly on the internet these days. And Other Music is a sort of time capsule back to the time when you could go to a space and talk to like-minded people about something that you found interesting, or get recommendations and discover new music through face-to-face interactions with people. And this film is fantastic. This next release isn't a boutique release, it's a studio release, but the release is just so good I had to include it. One, the film is one of my all-time favorite films ever, but the 4K release, restoration and, you know, work that has been put into this release is just absolutely phenomenal. And I'm talking about Singing in the Rain. This is a studio canal? No, sorry. This is a Warner Brothers release of the classic film, starring Gene Kelly, Donald O'Connor and Debbie Reynolds. And it's a timeless classic, and I felt I had to include it because the film is so good, and the 4K on this Technicolor absolute masterpiece is just flawless, and just this will be the best way you will ever be able to watch this film. So yeah, had to include it, Singing in the Rain. I interrupt my top 10 physical media releases of the year to highlight the Shelf Shock awards, the 2022 awards for the best physical media releases of the year. That's going to be taking place in February. I'll put all the information up on screen now. And I was lucky enough to be invited to be a committee member to sort of put forward some nominations for some of the best releases of the year in certain categories. So there's like a best horror release of the year, best classic studio release of the year, best packaging release of the year, etc., etc. And yeah, the voting is now live, and yeah, there's going to be a live award show in February to sort of give some, you know, recognition to these labels and these releases that they deserve, because it's been a fantastic year and a lot of hard work's gone into it. And back to the video. Some of these releases that I've talked about so far haven't been in any sort of order. These last 4 releases are sort of like the top tier of what I consider to be the best releases of the year. And so we'll talk about this one first, and this is the 4K release of David Lynch's Lost Highway. So Lost Highway is one of my favourite films. So a couple of these that have been released are some of my favourite films, but this really needed a restoration, because there's been a lot of releases of this film in the past that have been poor transfers. They've been very muddy, particularly in some of the darker scenes. There's a lot of shadowy scenes and scenes in the dark, and they've just been not up to scratch. They've been quite poor, really muddy and murky, and a 4K restoration needed to be done to really bring out the quality of the film. To describe this film, it's just futile, to be honest. It's very much about identity, very much in the vein of Mulholland Drive, but maybe leaning more on the noir themes here, femme fatale sort of stuff, and is an enigma. And it really does reward repeat viewings. But the score on here and the curated music on here absolutely slap on this 4K disc. Yeah, so play it really loud. Really, really good. And there's just some fantastic stuff on here. And there's a really great documentary on here from 1997 called Pretty as a Picture, The Art of David Lynch, which features like interviews with like a lot of Lynch's collaborators, like Angelo Badalamenti, who unfortunately recently passed away, and Peter Deming, and who's his cinematographer on a bunch of his work, and other people. And yeah, one of my favorite releases of the year, because it's such a fantastic one. It's one of my favorite films ever. So that's one thing. And 2, it's the visual and audio upgrade from previous releases, because they just haven't been up to scratch. And this has corrected all the flaws that has been previously in other releases. And all those dark, murky scenes now are nice and crisp, and the HDR grading and stuff is just absolutely perfect. And yeah, it's the only way to see this film now. So fantastic. Again, another release from Criterion. This is a really difficult film to recommend, but I had to include it. I had to be honest with myself. This is one of the best films I saw this year for the first time. And the whole package of this film, this release, yeah, it's very close to the top here. And I'm talking about John Waters' Pink Flamingos. Yeah, this film is a trip. Difficult watching in places, very punk, very against the grain, very in your face, very bizarre, weird, disgusting, funny. All the adjectives here. It's everything and nothing all at once. And to really boil down the plot, it's about 2 groups of people that are trying to basically outdo each other in terms of being the filthiest people alive, and the lengths that they will go to prove that to the world. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on here that is quite uncomfortable to watch. I found it hugely entertaining in the weirdest possible way that you can't not look at a car crash sort of thing. Yeah, it's shock cinema at its finest, I think. But what makes this release so good is all the supplements on here. Criterion, in recent years, haven't been as great, in my opinion, in terms of their special features and their supplements, but they knocked it out of the park with this one. This was so good. There's loads of stuff with John Waters. Like there's a conversation between him and Jim Jarmusch about the film. John Waters visits loads of filming locations from the film, sort of 50 years removed now, and talks to people that now live in the spaces where he filmed certain things, and it's just such a joy to watch. And yeah, there's a bunch of other things on here, like audio commentaries from 1997 and 2001 from John Waters, so there's some archival things on here. And yeah, I adore this film for my sins, and I think this is one of the best releases of the year as a whole package. The film is great, the supplements are great. One thing that is slightly annoying here is that this release is the UK one, and it doesn't come with the sort of novelty bath bag that the US release came with, which was slightly annoying, but I'm never going to use that. But it was like, it would have been a nice little novelty to have. But anyway, this film, so good. Great release from Criterion, well done. So we're getting down to my two favourite releases of the year. Two very different films from two very esteemed companies these days. This is definitely my second favourite release of the year. And it comes from Vinegar Syndrome, and it's their release of Tobe Hooper's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Yeah, this is a maligned sequel, and Tobe Hooper could never repeat what he did with the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. In my opinion, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the best horror film of the 1970s and is one of the most important horror films ever made. And this is nothing like the original, and nor should it be, because he was never going to remake or be able to capture that lightning that he had from the first film. This film, for one, has a bit more of a budget and is very much more over the top and goofy, and definitely gore in it, because the original is very reserved, much to what people may consider or think about it. There's not a lot of actual violence on show in that film. And yeah, this release is just stacked. For one, the artwork is just absolutely amazing. Absolutely love it. And then we have a slip inside a slip. So all you slip lovers out there, we have this on the front or the back, and then we have that fantastic recreation of the Breakfast Club poster art for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then inside we have the outside slip as well. And it comes with all these special features. Such a comprehensive disc release. I just can't believe it, and I watched everything on here because I am a huge fan of this film. This is it's funny, it's scary in places, and just it has some of my favourite sort of art design in any film. Particularly if you know and you've seen this film, there's a scene that's set underground in like a lair basement sort of thing, and the art design is superb. And there's a whole special feature just on that art design for that lair sequence that's towards the end of the film. There's loads of interviews with people who were in the film, like Caroline Williams, and it's just, yeah, and not to mention that the actual film itself, in terms of its 4K restoration and its HDR grading and the soundtrack and everything like that, it's just top notch and very filmic look. And Vinegar Syndrome have really outdone themselves and put out one of the best releases of the year, in my opinion, and for sure the best horror release of the year. Yeah, well done, Vinegar Syndrome. It takes my number 2 spot for physical media releases of the year. So after all these 9 amazing films that I consider to be some of the best of the year, what could possibly be number 1? Well, this company has a reputation for releasing some of the best premium sort of editions of Blu-rays in the market. Very much fans all over the world, and yeah, I'm very pleased to say that my favourite release of the year is Second Sight's 4K Drive Deluxe set. This is a tome. Let's have a little look inside this one. So this book is amazing. Hardback, really thick. How many pages? Does it actually say how many pages are in here? No, it's not numbered, but it has a bunch of stuff on like storyboarding and essays and stuff about like the soundtrack and score, and it's just a wealth of knowledge if you love this film, which I do. It's one of the modern films that I've seen the most amount of times on to repeat viewings. It's just very rewatchable. A lot of that is to do with the soundtrack. I think a lot of people love this film because of the soundtrack, but the soundtrack isn't the only thing to love about this film. Yeah, absolutely amazing this. You also get the novel, which the film is based on, by James Sallis. I've read this, not this book, but I've actually read the book before. I have the novel that was originally released. Very different to its source material. There's a lot of threads that connect them, but there are a lot of differences in terms of the plot and narrative, and some interesting points that are left out, or new bits that are added into the film. But novel included, absolutely amazing edition. And then of course we have your customary art cards, and then we have the 4K and the Blu-ray. And the 4K is just chef's kiss, absolutely incredible in terms of its visual presentation and the sound. I mean, everyone knows how good the soundtrack is for this, but blasting this out on your 4K disc through a really good pair of speakers, or your setup, or even just a really good pair of like noise cancelling earphones or something like high-end headphones sort of gear, sounds incredible. It's so good. And Second Sight knocked it out of the park. It has some of my favorite packaging. The film is incredible. The presentation of the film in terms of its visual and audio quality are like incredible. There's nothing wrong with it that I can gather. The special features are incredible. The supplements in the book are incredible. You also get the novel in this package, and just the art. It's very simplistic. Love this. This is from the back of the jacket that Ryan Gosling's character wears. And then just a note from Nicholas Winding Refn on the back here. And it's just superb. One of the best releases of the year. One of the best releases in recent years, in my opinion. And Second Sight are just absolutely killing it. They've got a very stacked 2023. They've got Martin coming out in 4K, the George A. Romero film. They have The Hitcher coming out. They also have a 4K of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre coming out. Yeah, they're already stacking up to be putting out some of the best releases of the year, of next year, of 2023, and they haven't even come out yet. So yeah, those are my 10 favorite releases of 2022. Let me know in the comments what are some of your favorite releases. There are a bunch of stuff, as I said at the beginning of the video, that I haven't managed to pick up yet, or I may have done and I just don't think they were in the top 10. So yeah, just please, let's have a discussion. What do you consider some of the best releases of the year? Influence me to buy some stuff that have been not on my radar. And yeah, here's to a fantastic year of physical media in 2023. And until next time, everyone, take care.